I don't want no oil spoiling my shoreline. I like fish much better than crud. I like birds and things creeping and crawling. Won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes!
Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus. Good evening, Bowling Green, and hello to everyone on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMare, and I'm here with my wonderful co-host,
Rebecca Wood, who is right now frantically trying to understand the handwriting of this really bad pen I used to write my short segment.
Aha! Well, luckily you've got a little time before we start doing the short segment. And together, Rebecca and I are going to craft a wonderful, wonderful hour of radio called For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment. And we talk about it in the ways that it affects you, your wealth, your health, your happiness, the wealth and health and happiness of your friends and your family and your co-workers, and the birds and the bees and the fish in the seas and everyone and everything, because, like it or not, all of us together are wrapped up on this wonderful planet called Earth. And we have, as usual, a wonderful show for you today. We're going to chat together for another 10 minutes or so. And then we're going to get a call from our good friend Jesse James Deer in the Water, who is going to give us an update on a whole bunch of nuclear issues up there in Michigan, our neighbor to the north. And this signal from this station does reach up into Michigan a fair ways, so a lot of what he has to say is going to affect a lot of the folks that are listening. Then we'll hear from our wonderful patrons and sponsors, and we have some really nice announcements about patrons and sponsors this week. And of course, then the short segment, which Rebecca is frantically editing on her notebook there.
Yes.
What will you be talking about this week, Rebecca?
I will be talking about the Cuyahoga Valley National Park.
Cuyahoga Valley National Park, a beautiful national park. And then it'll be ecological news from around the world, a fair bit of it right here in Ohio. And hopefully at some point we'll hear from you folks at 877-909-1007. That's 877-909-1007. Or, from now on, you can also call or text. Well, not call, I'm sorry. You can text 419-973-5841. That's 419-973-5841 to get your comments on the air, whether you want to talk or not. And so that's what we do here every week on For a Green Future. And Rebecca, I'm going to ask you to take the mic for just a second because I got to adjust one of our cameras here.
Oh, Kali-dokli. We've had our first snowfall here, and it's covered up all the trash. Normally, as someone who walks a dog, I have an intimate knowledge of the trash on my street, because if it has any food clinging to it at all whatsoever, the doggy finds it. So, I have to fight with her over the same. She won the fight over a walking taco that was like 24 hours old at least yesterday. That was yesterday, yeah, because I put it in my coat, because I was tired of fighting over her about it. And then she found my coat and dug it out of the pocket when we got home. So
Yes, superior senses.
Lost
those
that one.
Dogs have, right?
Yes.
Yeah, well, it is interesting weather today to walk a dog. Very slippery, if you're driving in the Toledo area, be super cautious. There's lots of slush and icy patches and so forth. And the temperature actually around here, it's just about normal for this time of the year. I think we're off the average by like 1 degree. But, of course, I got to remind everybody that just because it's cold doesn't mean there's no global warming. In fact, it's kind of dramatic. I saw the meteorological maps of this low that's causing all this rain and snow right now. And there's this big lobe that comes from the jet stream that comes all the way down from the North Pole, all the way down to like Florida, and then bops back up again. And it's unseasonably warm on either side of this lobe, but we're right in the middle of it. And it's just a reminder that this is not what the jet stream should be doing. The jet stream is supposed to be nice and tight around the North Pole. It's supposed to keep all that really cold, snowy stuff way up there in the Arctic. And because of global warming, as we've had meteorologists on our show who've explained this in the past episodes, because of global warming, instead of a nice tight circle around the North Pole, we get these big wavy globs that come all the way down into Florida. And so that's what we're doing. But it was also pretty warm all week up till this point, so we were above average. And this was a good week. This was a good week for the environment because of what happened in those elections that they had this past Tuesday. Still riding high from that. They're all over the country, essentially this was a rejection of the Republican Party's views on a whole bunch of things, including the environment. Specifically, one local race down there in Bowling Green, we had a city councilman who has been a global warming denier, and he lost his seat. And so now there's only one Republican left on the Bowling Green City Council. And the remaining Republican, is not a global warming denier. He doesn't oppose the city's penalty on having solar panels. He supports that. But he also expresses support for solar, which sounds contradictory, but it's also the position of the city. They release press releases saying, we support solar, even though we're penalizing it. And, but he at least says the right stuff.
I'd really hate to see them with stuff they don't support in that case.
Oh, yeah, good point. So one Republican retained a seat, one Republican lost a seat, and so now there's only one Republican on the Bowling Green City Council. And this was copied, these results were all over the country because I believe part of the reason the Republicans are losing their grip on things, part of the reason is the environmental horrors that they're,
it's not helping.
Nobody wants the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge opened up to oil and gas drilling, and just last week, as we reported, Trump has opened 1.6 million acres of the coastal plains of the Arctic National Wildlife to oil and gas drilling. And Americans like their wilderness. We are kind of proud of Yellowstone and the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, and here in Ohio, the Cuyahoga National Forest, as you're going to discuss later on. But one race that really drove this home for me, and it's not a race you hear about a lot on the national news, or the talking heads don't talk about it much, but in Georgia, they have the Public Service Commission. And our friend of the show, Patty Durand, ran for that about 5 years ago, and they tossed out that election because they said, Georgia's too racially gerrymandered, so we can't accept the election results.
Yeah, whose fault is that?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I know, exactly.
Who did that again?
The people who gerrymandered it racially went to court and said, this is too racially gerrymandered. We can't accept these election results.
God.
So as a result, the Republicans have had full control of the Public Service Commission for almost a decade, like 9 years. And finally, they managed to get elections going. And even though the maps are still racially gerrymandered, both the Republicans, there were 2 seats up, both held by Republicans, they both lost big time. And one of the main reasons they lost was because of the incredible price increases that Georgians are facing right now in their electric bills, because that Public Service Commission green-lighted the Vogtle nuclear plants, the most expensive power plants ever built by humankind. And the largest part of the bill increases in Georgia over the past decade have been to subsidize the Southern Energy, which is the owner of the nuke plants, subsidize them for building their nuclear plants, which that company is making record profits, even as the bills for the typical Georgians increase by more than 50%. And they're about to go up again because of rate increases that are already locked in. So it was a combination of the high prices and the bad decisions. Going nuclear is just a bad decision, whether you're talking ecologically, whether you're talking economically, whether you're talking, socially, health-wise for the people who live in the area, policy-wise in terms of creating a problem that's going to be around for 250,000 years. Every aspect of nukes is a bad decision, and so the people of Georgia spoke, and they spoke overwhelmingly. The entire state, even though it is still racially gerrymandered, the entire state just went completely against the Republican incumbents and put in 2 Democrats. And let's hope, knocking on wood, let's hope those Democrats realize that part of the reason they got in was because the Public Service Commission is so nuclear crazy, nuclear addled, and that the new guys who got in, the new people who got in, will oppose future nuclear things. That's not a given. There's a lot of Democrats who've drunk the radioactive Kool-Aid who are now supporting nuclear energy, but it's definitely it's a better chance now than it was before. And there's one guy, Tim Eccles. He was one of the outgoing PSC guys. He has been a tireless nuclear advocate for the last 10 years. He goes on speaking tours. He, makes public appearances, just singing the praises of radiation. And he got his butt handed to him, which is always nice to hear. So, unfortunately, as I said, things are not going too well up in our neighbor to the north there, up in Michigan, in terms of nuclear happenings. There's been a lot of developments there, and so that's why I asked Jesse James Dearwater to come on board. Jesse, are you there? Hello.
I think I am. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, all right. Cool. Good day.
Good day. Yeah, thanks for coming on, Jesse.
Yeah. We're getting a little snow up here, but it's not sticking.
Well, it's stuck down here. We got a nice little, coating on the ground, but.
All right.
But we'll.
All right. Yeah. Do you want me to just introduce myself to folks?
Yes, if you would, your organization and your.
All right. Yeah. My name's Jesse James Dearwater. My pronouns are he and him. I'm in North Redford, which is like right on the edge of Detroit. And I'm with Citizens Resistance at Fermi 2 Craft. We're an indigenous-led nuclear abolition organization that works on the issues around the Fermi 2 reactor and the waste that's stored there and the different environmental impacts. But also, we're also connected to other communities who are, got stuff going on too. And so we work, as like a unified front with other folks. But, we'd like to see Fermi shut down, the waste that's stored there be secured, that energy be replaced by some sort of renewable energy, preferably like a rooftop solar with some sort of community ownership over the grid. That's just a loose, thing of who we are and what we got going on, just for folks that aren't familiar.
Mm-hmm. And craft has been around for a while, right?
Since around there was the Christmas Day accident in 1993 where a turbine kind of like exploded, or cooling fan exploded and impaled the wall and leaked a whole bunch of water into the basement, and then there ended up being 15 or 1.5 million gallons of tritium water that DTE wanted to dump into Lake Erie, and that was about when Kraft was formed.
All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, but there's new challenges ahead here. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about, it's going on all over the country, of course, but definitely up in Michigan are these data centers that they're trying. They're trying to use to justify more nuclear. What's going on up there?
Totally, and not a lot of people are picking up on that yet. You know what I mean? And so we're kind of trying to spread the awareness around that. They're being proposed all over the country, and already here in Michigan, Detroit Edison, DTE, and Consumers Energy have already started making moves to secure energy for the future for data centers. So DTE has actually it was Governor Whitmer did the announcement of who the AI folks were, or the data center folks were, that Michigan had signed deals with, blah, 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 blah. But a day before that, there was some kind of shareholders meeting for DTE, where DTE had announced to the shareholders that they had secured deals with these tech companies. They didn't really make an announcement of it, though. They might just let Whitmer do it. I don't really know, but there has been resistance to these data centers, and in Saline, which is southeast of Michigan, southeast of Ann Arbor, they were resisting it and fighting back against it, but it was the company that was going to build the data center that's connected to DTE threatened to sue Saline, and Saline backed down, and now they're going to have this data center come in. There still could be resistance, but there was, their resistance was kind of beat down. And then so since this is happening and there's all this resistance, DTE has petitioned the state to fast track these data centers, fast track the permitting, fast track the siting, fast track all this stuff. Our Attorney General, Dana Nessel, just announced Friday that she would intervene in that, which is good, but a bunch of other groups are probably going to intervene anyway. And so where this starts to connect to nuclear here is DTE announced that in southeast Michigan for data centers, right now they could use the extra energy and bump up Fermi's output capacity. Now, they had released a statement on how they would do that, and I don't remember exactly what, but it sounded like something like just turning it up a little bit, turning Fermi up a little bit or something, or that there's some kind of extra energy that we don't really know about that they can use for the data centers. Probably something that they're selling to Ohio or Canada, because that happens. You know what I mean? They sell the extra power to other places sometimes. And so they've also said that that would cover the needs short term for data centers, and if they need anything extra, they would look at new generation, that being small modular reactors and potential gas plants. Yeah.
So
and so that's what we have happening here, but this isn't just here. This is all over the country. Like I have a couple notes here. Microsoft has bought 837 megawatts for 20 years, starting in 2028 for the restart of 3 Mile Island. In July, the NNSA, the National Nuclear Security Administration, and the Department of Energy announced 4 sites for AI data center and SMNR energy infrastructure development on federal lands. Google is paying early-stage capital for 1,800 megawatts of SMNR development to power data centers, and that's like the Kairos power and all these other ones. Right. The U.S. government announced to fund the Fermi America in Texas, where they'll build 4 AP100 reactors to power these hyperscale data center projects.
Yeah, AP1000. But I want to bring the focus back to Michigan, though.
Yeah. All right, sorry. But I just wanted to say that it's happening all over the place.
It is.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
The environmental impact of all these data centers is just incredible. Each one is like the impact of a city, basically, in terms of energy and thermal pollution and water usage. But bringing it back to Michigan, one of the things another thing that's sort of heating up in there is opposition. You have one of the few approved radioactive waste dumps there in Michigan.
Oh, yeah.
And there's been more resistance lately to the fact that that Michigan is getting waste from all over the country, including, by the way, Ohio, including right from here, Northwest Ohio. We have a nuclear contamination site in Lucky, Ohio, which is just south of Toledo. And they've torn down all these buildings, they've taken all this topsoil, and they've trucked it right up there to Michigan. Resistance is growing to that, right? Yeah.
It is, and you know, that's one of the kind of like hopeful and highlights that we've had here recently is this resistance and growing awareness, right? Freaking, because it seemed like for the longest time that not many people were paying attention to those injection wells and that waste dump over there, but now they are, and man, they're raising a stink. This is over in Belleville, which is kind of like in between Ann Arbor and Detroit, a little bit, kind of a little bit to the south. You know, they've had town halls, public hearings. They've had people doing research on everything, like everything from like the impacts of radioactivity, you know what I mean, on people and the environment, to they're studying the you know, the paperwork, you know, what's going on there, the documents. They're coming together, people of different,
socioeconomic classes,
bipartisan or something. And the real highlight for me is that people are learning about this. You know, they're learning about the history of the Manhattan Project. They're learning about the dastardly deeds that were done during that time and how we're still paying for it. And, you know, this is waste from like 80 years ago, 70 years ago. It still has no home and still there's nothing to do with it. And so it's making people become kind of aware of like, well, if this is stuff from a long time ago, are we going to have to worry about all the other nuclear waste too? You know, because people are starting to ask questions about Fermi now. These people who weren't paying attention to it, and so you know that's I don't know if that kind of helps, but
yeah, no, that's
the vibes.
That's good. There was just one more thing I wanted to touch base with you on there, and that is that they just, even though people are starting to wake up there in Michigan, the legislators, a lot of the legislators are still kind of in the nuclear fantasy world, and they just passed a whole slew of laws that are supposed to help the nuclear industry there. Could you?
Yeah. And this has been I feel like it's going to be so for the past couple years, and for the next few years, I imagine. Ever since a while back, we did they had the House Bill 6019 a few years ago, which was the nuclear feasibility study. We opposed that. But that kind of like happened and came out, and so now a lot of these policies or these resolutions and things that are being introduced, or especially to the House, I should say, bills that are being introduced to the House are kind of like made up from the parts of that nuclear feasibility study, and they're kind of coming in waves. And so the most recent one is one that so it has to do a lot with like the small modular reactors, and like so some of it's for education, and then some of it's like blanket subsidies for the advanced nuclear projects, and some of the issues that are in there are that it doesn't really talk about safety and financial like criteria specifics, I guess you could say, with these projects, like what these projects would have to meet to qualify. Let's see here.
It's just sort of a wide open, just Wild West sort of thing.
There's So those are the parts that I'm not so up on, but what I was paying attention to and what I was seeing and what I was hearing about was that there's the analysis that I was seeing was that there's some subsidies going into education, and but it's not like going into like the University of Michigan and Michigan State. I'm sure that there probably will be some, but it's going into smaller colleges that are closer to the reactors. So like Monroe Community College is gonna would get some money for funneling students in to classes so they can send them straight to Fermi, and I think there was similar talk I had heard through the grapevine over on the western part of the state about one of those small community colleges over there getting a bunch, potentially getting a bunch of funds from one of these bills that's going through, so that it can help create, the education, I guess, closer to the reactors, so they can, promote the local jobs idea. You know what I mean? Creating a poor person pipeline.
and what kind of caught my eye about that is it also kind of sounded like it was funding sort of Nukes Are Wonderful education, basically.
AKA propaganda.
It's not like a comprehensive or like a full spectrum education. It's just,
the benefits, All right.
Yeah, and so, so it passed the House. It hasn't gone through the Senate yet. I don't really know where it sits in relation to that. It just passed the House, like, really super recently. And there has been some folks who aren't regular anti-nuke people who have raised some concerns with it, especially in the realm of money, because you know that nuclear stuff is expensive. You know what I mean? And that some of the language in the thing just leaves it open to the people or charge people to have like priceless projects, and that ratepayers would have to be recovered money from.
Right.
There's just not really, and so there may be a big push to fight back against it in the Senate.
All right. Well, Jesse, thanks for the update. We got to move on the show here.
Oh, sorry.
But
all right.
It's all right. Just a couple more questions, how could people follow you folks?
Oh, yeah. We're online, shutdownfermi.com, and then you can find us on Instagram at Craft Citizens Resistance. That's CRAFT Citizens Resistance. Those are two of the easiest places. We're also on the Book of Faces, Craft Citizens Resistance at Fermi too.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Jesse.
All right. Thank you, Joe.
Okay.
Appreciate y'all. Bye.
Bye. All right.
I call it facing book sometimes.
Okay. Well, so I guess we're going to move on with the show here. That was Jesse James Steered the Water from Craft. And what we're going to do now is thank our advertisers and patrons. First of all, Foregreen Future is brought to you by the Wood County Park District. Imagine a place where nature meets adventure, where you can climb, paddle, fish, and explore. That place, it's right here in Wood County. The Wood County Park District is here to protect, preserve, and inspire. We conserve natural and cultural treasures so you can enjoy the outdoors like never before by maintaining green spaces, providing fun programs, restoring wildlife habitats, and leading outdoor adventures. Want to connect with nature? Try your hand at archery, bouldering, geocaching, paddling, rappelling, and more. Whether you're seeking experience or a peaceful retreat, our parks are open every day from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset all year round. Come explore, get outside, experience nature. Your parks, your adventures waiting for you. Find us online at wcparks.org or follow on Instagram, Facebook, or X, or call 419-353-1897. The Wood County Park District, preserving nature, creating adventure, and inspiring a greener future. And we're also brought to you by our patrons. And our patrons are wonderful people who've gone to patreon.com, Patreon. There they searched for Foregreen Future. Up popped our Patreon page, and they signed up at a monthly rate that matches their budget. And so now a little bit comes out of their accounts every month. And that comes over to us, and that's how we can afford to keep this show on the air. And I want to say a special thank you, because thank you to all our patrons, but a special thank you to Jack, who made a very generous one-time donation, which you could do, and Clayton, who has re-upped his credit card expired, and so his membership expired, but he resubscribed, and so we're back on track with getting donations from Clayton and Jack. Thank you both very much. Okay, Rebecca, it is your turn at the mic. What are we talking about this week?
Okie doke. Well, a couple of weeks ago, my roommate went to Cuyahoga Valley National Park just for one day to see it. She'd never been there. She'd grew up in Akron and everything. So it's near Akron and Cleveland on the eastern side of the state. The CVNP has a big section of the Cuyahoga River running through it, and also the Ohio and Erie Canal, including some towpath trails, which if you live around Toledo and have been down to Grand Rapids, you will know are quite charming and scenic, although they don't have like a restored section of the canal with real mules and a boat like we do.
Oh, yes. Very nice.
Yeah, well, that I know of anyway. So, yeah, but it does sound pretty cool anyway. It was created by Congress in 1974, which meant that its 50th anniversary was last year. And sparking an article by the Conservancy for the CVNP, 5 ways to experience the park. 50 ways to experience the park. I'm not getting into all 50 because that would be our whole show. But that includes cycling, hiking, kayaking, seasonal concerts, and ranger-led walks and talks. And maybe some where they both walk and talk. I'm not sure what they meant by walks and talks, maybe it's walks and/or talks. So right. One of these ways another way you can do that is to go to the Boston Mill Visitor Center, where you can get your national park passport stamped. My roommate is big into those. She's got like a water bottle where she can collect all the stickers from all the national parks and put them on her water bottle too.
Ooh.
Yeah, pretty fancy. So yeah, you can get advice on where to go and what to do, and you can learn a little bit about the park history. And they have a brochure, including a driving map of the park. Also, there are junior ranger handouts and activity cards for younger children. And there's a souvenir shop. The center is a nice old building. It was once a general store for the Cleveland Akron Bag Company. And they have some kind of snack bar restaurant thingy. I'm not sure whether it's more of a snack bar or a restaurant. But it's got some kind of name about granola, the granola bar, the trail mix, or it's got the trail mix. Yeah, it's a pun. It's witty for national park people anyway. So it's near the start of part of the towpath trail, so you can hop on there from there. And they got books for sale too. And also they have something called the Cuyahoga Valley Environmental Education Center, where they do school field trips for your whole class can come, and they'll do a little program for them. So the environmental importance of the park is that it is a vital watershed, biodiversity hotspot, which protects 22 miles of the Cuyahoga River, which, as you may recall, at one point caught on fire. So it does, in fact, need protection. It provides habitat for salamanders, cold water fish, and migratory birds. It's got forest and wetlands habitats, and acts as a big water filter for the river and ultimately the lake. Like, I guess Lake Erie, that probably feeds into. And
Yep.
Yeah, I lived in Cleveland. I know this. But it's unique because it has a lot of cold, spring-fed streams, which are really good if you are a fish that likes cold stuff.
Like a trout.
Yeah, something like that. It also has grasslands, and it forms a north to south migration corridor for birds and insects, including the prothonotary warbler. I can't imagine what that is and what it's got to do with notaries. But it will not, it won't, you can't pay it to sign things in front of it. It doesn't have a little stamp. And also peregrine falcons. So, yeah, some threats to the park would include climate change in the form of flooding and storms, pollution from surrounding developments. Budget cuts are threatening to reduce maintenance and staffing. And also, of course, the climate change promotes pest migration, as in more pests migrating in, which you don't want, which could destroy habitat for 50 to 66 of these species. My goodness. I think that percent, that's a percentage. Okay. And that's probably going to affect amphibians and fish. And the heat is also going to be dangerous for hikers, and the bad weather is, bad if you're out paddling and something hits you in your kayak. And what was the thing you were talking about? Oh, yeah, they're going to cut it all down.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, that 80% of the park. That's what.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
Kumbaya out. Yeah, why?
Yeah, I don't know. All right. Well, thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
All right, on to ecological news. And our first story actually is not what you'd call breaking news. But it's a study I came across that it's so important that I wanted to include it. And this was a study done out of the University of Michigan. Ironically enough, given the Michigan's propensity for nukes now under the current governor. This study was done back in June 8th of 22, and the University of Michigan website, its title is Study, Most, quote, Silent, unquote, Genetic Mutations Are Harmful, Not Neutral, with a finding with broad implications. And essentially what it is, we've got roughly 1 million genes or so, and they're all, amino acids in a specific order, like TACG. And it has long been thought that if you get a mutation in sort of one of the unimportant genes, one of the ones that's not like actively regulating stuff, that it doesn't really matter. That it's what's called a synonymous. That you have a mutation in one, and if it's not something like vital, that it's not going to affect things. But they did this study, and that turns out to be false, because what they did was they were able to genetically modify yeast cells, right? And so they would change one gene in the yeast cells, one like unimportant background kind of gene, and they found that 76-1, those actually reduced the ability of the genes of the yeast cells to reproduce and grow. So the vast majority of mutations, even the ones that don't show up right away, even the ones that don't cause any kind of outward thing, like weird wiggly stuff sticking out of your cell membranes or whatever, most mutations are harmful. And the reason this is big news is because all our regulations, all the limits set by the government, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, all the health studies are based on this assumption, which was made back in the 1960s, that minor changes to the unimportant genes don't really matter. And so this is an important one for us to know. What they did, they used yeast cells, as I said, they used CRISPR to change the genes. They studied 21 of these unimportant, quote unquote, unimportant genes, and they made 8,000 different strains of the yeast cells. And so they were it was one of those pure scientific. They had a control group where they didn't change anything. And they did find that like in 1%, like there was like 1 out of every 77 strains, their mutation actually improved performance. Their mutated yeast cells actually did better than the control group, but harmful mutations outnumber beneficial by 76-1. So that's an important study, even though it's not exactly breaking news.
How come they're not using fruit flies anymore? Fruit flies aren't good enough for them?
Oh, they still use fruit flies.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
I thought they like to use them to study genes because their genes are so big and they reproduce so fast or something. I don't know.
Yeah, they don't have that many genes.
Okay.
They're simple in terms of genes.
Right.
And when they have a mutation, it shows up very clearly on their bodies very quickly.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah, like in fact, the most I know the most common genetic mutation for fruit flies is green eyes. Green-eyed Drosophila is a mutant, and I know this because that was my costume to the Halloween party.
So blue-eyed people, what's your point?
Yeah. Well, that was the costume I wore to the Halloween party where I met my wife.
Right. I
went as a green-eyed Drosophila.
Always remember,
the
right?
theme was mutants, right?
Okay.
That one's stuck in my brain. All right. Okay. Anyway, on to our next story, and this story comes from happyeconews.com, which is a website dedicated to good ecological news. It's a nice idea. This story was initially published on October 20th. Pope Francis makes Vatican City one of 8 countries running on renewable energy. And what has happened is that the Vatican is now completely solar powered, completely energy dependent. They have a 1,000-acre solar farm in the Santa Marina Gadiera. It's a little suburb on the edge of Rome. And it's a farm where they're practicing agrivoltaics. So all of you folks who get your, undies in a bunch because you're like, they're taking farmland. No, it's still farmland. It's just also now solar too. So now the Vatican is officially one of the eight leaders in the world that have managed to get to 100% renewable energy. The other 7 are Albania, Bhutan, Nepal, Paraguay, Ireland, Ethiopia, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And they all are 100% renewable energy with a mixture of geothermal, hydro, wind, and solar. So it is happening, folks. We are making the transition. Unfortunately, it's still not fast enough to save us, but we could look to leadership like the Vatican now And this was started actually by the previous pope, where he he wrote an encyclical titled Fratello Sole, which means in Italian, "Our brother the sun."
Oh, interesting.
And it's also being used. The Vatican is also funding solar projects around the world in order to fight poverty. They have a big project in Malawi down there because it's much cheaper, it turns out, to put some solar panels on the roof of a house, where people are poor and can't afford to get electrical connections. It's one of the cheapest and quickest ways to improve the life of, really poor people, is to give them solar power.
Yeah, I bet.
So, and it's just a bit of good eco news. So, thought I'd pass it on to you folks. Next story. This is not so good. This is a story in the Independent, and the title is "Category 6 is the new hurricane normal, scientists warn."
Oy vey.
Yeah, and
That doesn't sound good.
no, it's kind of like that, that scene in the movie, in that one rock mockumentary where they've got the speakers. That go
this
to
one
11.
goes to 11.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Oh, there's a sequel coming out. Did you know that?
Yes, I heard about
yeah,
that.
me too.
But what has happened? What the current, because they haven't changed it yet, but the current scale only goes up to 5. It's called the Saffir-Simpson Hurricane Wind Scale, and at the time they made it, they had the maximum wind speed as 157 miles per hour sustained winds.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the gusts. That's just the constant 157 miles per hour. The problem is that since 2013, we've already had 5 storms that exceeded that.
Or like your high school coaches like to say, these hurricanes are giving 110%.
Yes, exactly, they are. And so the proposal is to increase this to have Category 6 be between 157 and 192 miles per hour.
Okay.
And part of it, Melissa, Hurricane Melissa that we just had, is one of the reasons that they're pushing for this now, because Melissa was the fastest intensifying storm in history. It tied for the most powerful with the highest pressure drop. It was the most powerful North Atlantic storm ever in history. And of course, this is all being fueled by the very hot ocean, which is not going away anytime soon. Even if we were to stop doing carbon tomorrow, the ocean would take a while to cool down again, because we've got it up to like 90 degrees in the Gulf of Mexico, which is just insane. There's a little bit of controversy about it. Some meteorologists are like, we won't be able to compare the old storms to the new storms as easily if we add a whole new category on the end. That's kind of an academic argument. The Dr. Catherine Hayhoe, who is the Nature Conservancy chief scientist, does have kind of a good critique of it. She says that we need to revamp the whole system, because right now they only look at wind speed to categorize a storm.
Not the storm surge?
Right, not the storm surge,
Okay.
and especially not the precipitation.
Right.
Because she's saying that some of the biggest damage now, because the atmosphere is holding so much more water, it's the rain that causes as much or more damage than the wind.
Very true. And how many tornadoes it throws up our way.
Yeah, tornadoes count. Yeah. So it looks like
Don't
it's going to
appreciate
happen.
that.
Yeah, it looks like it's going to happen just because there's so many storms that have already exceeded the maximum. Nobody told the storms this. They're just going and being as strong as they want. It's kind of rude, but so that's an interesting story. On to our next one, and we're sticking with meteorology and weather. The World Meteorological Organization put out its State of the Climate in Latin America and the Caribbean. They actually released this back in March, but it's good to know that they're just sort of promoting it now. In the Caribbean and Latin America, 2024 was, again, the warmest on record. Incredible record-breaking. Floods, fires, hurricanes, and droughts have caused disruptions to supply chains down there.
Uh-oh.
which means that it's getting so bad you can't even find food or clothing because, your store has been destroyed and the trucks can't get through. One thing that they highlighted was that Venezuela has become the second country in the world to lose all its glaciers. There are now no more glaciers in Venezuela.
It never even occurred to me that they would have glaciers, but I guess they are close to the Andes, no?
Yes, they
Okay.
have, right. They're up, they got mountains.
Right, the Andes Mountains, Rebecca. You should remember that.
Yeah. The first country was actually Slovenia, and they lost the last of their glaciers back in the 1960s, so that's kind of interesting. But it also is interesting that a lot of sources get this wrong. AI got it wrong. All the AIs I checked. Scientific American got it right, but a lot of other sources get it wrong. They're claiming that Venezuela is the first country to lose all its glaciers, but nope, it was Slovenia.
Okay.
And the next country, according to this report, is Mexico, and Mexico could lose the last of its glaciers as soon as next year and possibly as late as 2030.
Sierra Madres.
They're melting rapidly. It's not all bad news. Renewables in the Caribbean and Latin America are up by 70% in 2024. They went up 70% in 1 year. So that's almost doubling in 1 year, which is great. Solar and wind, the amount of power increased by 30%. They have some interesting graphs in there that show that the rate of temperature increase. And they had one graph that used the baseline as the 30-year average between 1991 and 2020. And the thing about that graph is it sort of hobbles along up to the average line, and then all of a sudden, about 2 years ago, it starts going up really sharply.
Oh, yep.
And so a graph like that just demonstrates that we've got, what, Rebecca? What is it that's happening?
Positive feedback loop.
Yes, positive feedback loop, because the effects of raising the temperature, those effects also cause the temperature to raise. And so that creates that rapid acceleration, that positive feedback loop that, like in a nuclear bomb, that leads to the explosion. Okay. Or in an algae bloom, with among algae, it leads to the bloom that like fills the lake with algae. So that's what we're caught in. And I like to take every opportunity to drive that home to people because it shows just how serious this global warming is. And don't listen to Trump when he says it doesn't exist. He's lying. All right.
If it's not a good color for human hair, it's not a good color for the lake.
Green.
Yeah, they're always complaining about, there's people, they're blue and green hair. Well, guess there's a whole lake that's that color of green, buddy.
Well,
and you got to drink. A lot of people got to drink out of it too.
Some green hair could be good. My girlfriend actually has part of her hair green, and I like it. So
yeah, I think I love it that we used to say blue-haired little old lady as someone was prudish and didn't want anyone to have any fun. Now there are actual intentional blue-haired little old ladies.
Yeah, there's blue-haired 20-year-olds.
Yeah, too. Yes. All right.
Okay, final story, and this is just an interesting one, just an eco story. I like to sprinkle those in. phys.org, phys.org, on November 5th. Sulfur cave spiders build an arachnid megacity and possibly the largest ever spider web.
My heavens.
Yes, so there's this cave that's on the border between Italy and Albania, or Greece and Albania, Greece and Albania. And in that cave, there's a spider web that's about 100 square meters.
My goodness.
So and it's got all these levels. It actually kind of looks like a spider skyscraper.
Wow. And
living in this web are about 70,000 domestic house spiders and about 42,000 of another species called Pryneragon vagans, V-A-G-A-N-S, which is also unusual. It's unusual for a couple of reasons. One, it's a shared colony, two different species of spider living in the same web cooperatively. That's really weird.
Yeah.
And both species are usually solitary. Neither of them usually form colonies or cooperative groups. It's a very interesting little, very simple cave ecosystem. You've got some standing water in there all the time, and in that water are bacteria that digest sulfur. 'Cause
Okay.
the water's saturated with hydrogen sulfide gas. And then there's these flies, these chironomid flies, that eat the bacteria, and then the spiders eat the flies.
Okay.
And
Makes sense.
That's the whole food chain in those caves. But what happens is there's so much gas and there's so many of these flies that the spiders basically have an unending buffet.
Yeah.
The
That's worth doing something a little bit different than usual.
Yes, the flies, there's as many flies as they could eat, and so as big a web as they could spin, that's how many flies they get to eat, and so they're working together. I wanted to read this. I'm glad I managed to
It's
time
like
this
the
right.
Beijing of
Yeah.
spiders.
All right, so I'm just going to read this paragraph, or this sentence. Believe it or not, this is a sentence, because this tells you what scientific journal speak is. I'm going to read you this scientific journal sentence, and then I'm going to translate it. All right. So here's the sentence from the article. Our findings unveil a unique case of facultative coloniality in this cosmopolitan spider, likely driven by the resource abundance in a chemotrophic cave, and provide new insights into the adaptation and trophic integration of surface species in sulfidic subterranean habitats. I just love that. The translation is...
Same to you, buddy.
Yeah, the translation is, we didn't know before that sulfur caves with lots of midges could create spider cities with more than one species.
But by gum, they can.
But it turns out they can. All right. Well, that's it for our show. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you to Jesse for being our guest this week. And please consider becoming a patron of For a Green Future. That's it for this show. This is Joe DeMare.
And Rebecca Wood.
We are signing off.
Creeping and crawling, won't trade no more oil for blood. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that black demon oil's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. I don't want them nukes run by them kooks who think radioactivity is fun. No more three-headed frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done.